welcome to the NT Recap. I am Sarah Reuben, and what a show we have for you today. We are going to be deep diving into vandalism on the rise. We're also going to look at the role of telehealth here in the NT, and also the effects of rising COVID cases on Howard Springs. Now, I am joined by two amazing panelists today. I have Ashley MANICAROS and also Amy Hetherington to take you through everything that was in the week of the NT. Now, we're going to truck right along because we've got so much to cover today. Vandalism in the NT. Can we have nice things up here? It feels like we do so much. There's so much amazing development going on, beautiful public art, fixing up spaces. There's lots of investment going on, but things seem to continually be getting vandalized. State Square car park, which was only built like a year ago. The RSPCA sign in Berrima. The Alice Springs sign, welcome to Ice Springs, and like the GAN. Ashley.
Well, once upon a time, the only thing that ever happened to the GAN when it came to town is a bunch of Palmerston people mooned it. Now we're having rocks thrown at it, and I got to say to you, I don't know that that's a great first impression, having rocks thrown at the GAN when it arrives. So it's a bit sad because it took us 100 years to get the railway, and now we're vandalising it when it's driving into town.
Yeah, fresh coat of paint and everything affecting the GAN there, and it's not just like the train and anything that's moving. You hear a lot of small businesses are cleaning up the mess after late nights or weekends when windows are getting smashed, and it costs a lot. It takes a lot of energy from those staff, so it is definitely sad. But I guess I kind of think about it as, I don't think it's just Darwin. I think this is like everywhere, like in Australia. Like even like you look at Adelaide a few months ago, they got that new pigeon statue, that like thousands of dollars pigeon statue, and within 2 days somebody had like taped a sex toy to its chest. Like I don't think it's just Darwin.
And I think we need to look at like why this is happening. Like, are there not enough opportunities for people? Like, is there not enough ways for people to express themselves? Like, that's quite like a interesting expression.
Yeah. Well, you know, art is in the eye of the beholder.
Exactly.
But some vandalism can actually be quite funny. It's not, the subject of ice is not a funny subject, but Ice Springs is actually a little bit funny, even though it's a very serious subject. But some vandalism can be, and but not to the detriment of the actual business involved.
Yeah. It's a hard one because like generally like the research out there is that vandalism occurs when people are bored or they don't have support structures, or there's something that is missing from that world to help these people make better life choices. So I guess for me, I'd like to see some of those millions of dollars we spent on a car park mainly funneled into youth programs and into these spaces that are actually going to support young human beings that maybe need a bit of direction.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to move right along now. Telehealth. Ashley.
Yeah, so it's an interesting situation in Katherine because they've gone from having no GPs in the town that could service the non-Indigenous community, basically. There's plenty of Indigenous medical health facilities. Now they've got 2 GPs that have opened up their doors in the last couple of weeks, private practices, and actually securing GPs is a real challenge. And now they're talking about telehealth, where they will actually be able to give specialist advice using technology. We've all had to adjust with Zoom conferences and Microsoft Teams conferences. It was interesting listening to the Australian Medical Association talk about this, because basically about 70% of the consultation is actually the specialist and the doctor sitting opposite the patient, physically looking at them one-on-one in person. And the diagnosis that's the main part of the diagnosis. So I'm not sure how it's going to work, but that's basically what we're going to see, or the people of Katherine are going to see very shortly.
Yeah, they're even talking really interestingly about having telehealth in emergency rooms and hospitals in places where they're finding it hard to recruit experienced doctors. And so junior doctors would be there in person, being overseen by more experienced doctors that might be, you know, like half the world
Big
away.
Brother in the hospital, in triage kind of thing. I just wonder, like, are we doing something wrong in terms of how we market Katherine as a destination for people? Is something missing, or is that narrative so negative that people aren't thinking of Katherine as a potential good place? Because
I don't think it's just Katherine. I don't think it's just Katherine, and it's rural doctors in general. And one of the problems is in the private practice, and one of the difficulties that the 2 private practices has is they were competing against the public health system, which notoriously pays 20 or 30% more for a doctor than the private can and the GP can earn. So they're going to where the money is, and that's where the growth is.
Yeah.
And the need is so great out there. It's really important that people are able to access it. So the healthcare that they need. So just as long as they are getting that healthcare in some respect, and if that is what telehealth covers in this interim, like maybe that's good.
We're all adapting to new technologies and new things. I've had doctor's appointments over Zoom, and they've been really great. But full circle, bring it round. Katherine is a place that does graffiti well. The Jesus Loves Nachos sign. We could use that as a marketing tool. Get people in that way.
And when it rains there and it floods, I hope he likes wet nachos.
All right, we're going to move right along now. Well, a lot of repatriation flights have been coming in to the NT and across Australia in general, but there has been a huge rise in COVID cases and putting a lot of pressure on Howard Springs and other quarantine facilities across Australia, and there's big talk about reducing the amount of people that are able to come on these repatriation flights. Big changes today, actually. Until May 15th, all repatriation flights from India have been cut across Australia. It's really huge.
Yeah, it's insane, and it's also like that's a lot of human beings that are trying to get home that maybe aren't able to do that. But I guess there's such a high risk, isn't there? Especially with the remote communities and the people that are quite vulnerable here in Darwin. Darwin's one of the few places that India goes directly to, so there are a lot of those potential cases coming directly here to the Northern Territory. And I don't know, Ashley, have you been...
Look, there are something like 9,000 people that are Australians, and this is one of the challenges for everyone, is that you are talking about the repatriation of Australians here, and it may have some impacts even on a sporting team. They're talking about the Australian cricketers and cricketers who are currently playing over in the cricket league over there.
Yeah, the lucrative one. It pays very well.
Yeah, it does. It pays very well, ridiculous amounts of money. Having trouble getting back. But the other challenge is you're just seeing, it is distressing to watch, and there's a Territory guy over there, Oates, I'm just trying to think of his name, the ABC journo, who is actually covering it right in the middle of the pandemic. No oxygen available. There was a fire in one of the hospitals the other day. 24 people died because the oxygen got cut off. I mean, this is traumatic crisis stuff.
Yeah.
From a humanitarian point of view, like, these people need to come home.
Yeah.
And it's very obvious where the gap in the system is. It's not getting these people onto flights. It's how they're, like, what's happening once they land, and those facilities.
Yeah.
You can see exactly, like, it's an airborne disease or virus, and, in Howard Springs they're doing such a good job because it is so open air there.
Well, we'll see what happens, but there's talk that they may be tested before they get on the planes to come to Australia. 10 days out, there may be all of these implementations. We'll see what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we help people, especially when you look at some of the footage and things that are coming out of India at the moment. It's very distressing, and hopefully, there's people that are able to look after each other. But I mean, it's an escalating thing. COVID is something that doesn't just disappear quickly. It grows before it improves.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move along now. We have got Matt and Damo hitting the NT. Where are they this week? We are about to find out.
G'day guys, and welcome to Darwin. Damo and myself are going to take you around the city today and show you a few things that aren't going to cost you an arm and a leg.
Fish and chips for days, mate.
So there's plenty of ways you can get around Darwin. You can run, ride, skate or scoot. And today Matthew and I, well, we've chosen the scooters.
And this is in style.
Yoo-hoo! Do a trick. There's so much more to Darwin than boats, beers and billabongs. In fact, around the city itself there's some fantastic artwork by some very talented Indigenous and non-Indigenous artists. Come on down and check it out for yourself. The artwork right behind me would have to be my favourite. See if you can guess why. The artwork we've seen so far has ranged from funky to fantastic, but there are some very powerful pieces like the one behind me that go straight through your eyes and into your soul.
It can be hard to find a park here, so if you come here early Saturday morning while Darwin's fishing and sleeping, you'll have this whole place to yourself.
After a nice day out in Darwin, there's nothing better than a top-end sunset.
And a nice cold beer.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah.
Hello
G'day,
and
g'day.
welcome to the show.
Yeah, welcome back to the show, episode 3. We're loving it. So normally what Matthew and I do, Matthew's behind the camera filming me somewhere deep in the bush moistaz having a lot of fun. But today, last week, we decided to go into a bit of a concrete jungle instead. And it was pretty fantastic. Yeah, it's something different. It's not our usual natural habitat, I would say. But we had a lot of fun, didn't we, Matthew?
Oh, we loved it. Loved it. Awesome. Nothing better than Darwin.
And Matt did a trick on the scooter. I can't really top that.
Yeah, there were no stacks on the scooter. I was waiting for one of those moments.
No, we were
where
wearing the helmets.
I'm actually curious, how long did you run for? You said you went for a run. It looked like maybe 2 seconds. How far did you get?
Oh, it was 2 seconds for that shot, but we did a number of different angles that didn't quite make the cut. I did a bit of the old Rocky and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it was good to go.
Yeah, that didn't make the cut.
I needed some half-time oranges afterwards, though.
And I can't believe you didn't manage to find any wildlife in the CBD. There's usually a fair bit of wildlife, especially on Mitchell Street.
Yeah, exactly.
Money's after midnight, mate. Everything's an animal there, myself included.
One thing we wanted to show is actually, if you're from Darwin, you are a local. There's even paintings in the city that a lot of locals haven't seen, and there's just things that people haven't experienced themselves yet. So if you're Darwin, you're a local, get out there and get into it.
Yeah, those scooters are a good way to get around too. Park your car and you can see more of the city. Just make sure you wear a
Awesome,
helmet.
thank you
might look like
so
a
much.
point
We
deck,
look forward
but
to
wear a
seeing where
helmet.
you are next week on Matt and Damo hitting the NT.
Phew.
We're heading into dry season, and oh boy, there's a lot going on up here. Amy, can you talk about what's happening in the NT?
There's so much going on right now. I mean, like some of the things that I'm really looking forward to. If you're in Alice Springs at the moment in the Central Region, Wide Open Space Festival is on, which is my favourite festival in the Northern Territory. Controversial opinion. But some of the greatest acts are there. Briggs is there in terms of one of their headline acts, but also bands like the Epic Fannies and Daddy Longlegs. So there's a lot of fun going out there. And if you're not into that kind of weird alternative music festival vibe, you can head to the Alice Springs Cup over the weekend if you're in the Central Region for something a little bit more sophisticated.
Well, I don't know, the birdcage gets a bit messy in the afternoon, so yeah.
Look, it's the dry season. We're all getting messy at the moment, aren't we? And carrying on, if we're going to head up the Stewart Highway to things that are on in Darwin, one of the things that's really exciting is Miley Point Playground seems to be complete after a few controversies that were happening there. It was supposed to be done in the early 2020, but some asbestos was found, which is always a great thing for a children's playground. You try to put kids in the park to try and boost their immune system, but I'm not sure how asbestos cracks into that. But that's opening now, which is great.
Great. Just in time for school holidays to go back.
Exactly, yes. Matt and Damo has restocked with 40,000 barramundi. So for those people out there looking for the $1 million barra, head over there and try and catch a fish. Middle Beach Markets is returning on April 29, which I'm really excited for.
Yes, absolutely.
Although I have a very strong opinion, you shouldn't clap the sunset. So if you're going to Mindle Beach, don't sit there and clap the sunset. Have a luxer like a normal person.
Why don't you clap the sunset?
Do you clap the sunset, Ashley?
No, but I watch it, but I'm just curious why you don't clap it. But
You shouldn't clap the sunset, though. We haven't done anything to deserve. Like, we are literally just
there'll be
rotating.
another one tomorrow.
I feel pressure to do it because everyone else is doing it, and I think I'll feel like a bad person, like the one person not applauding the sunset.
Well, one thing you can applaud is Max Fredericks. He's got an album launch happening. It's for his new album, One More Step, happening at the Darwin Entertainment Centre. Max has been kicking around Darwin for ages. He's one of our most loved performers in town. And excitingly enough, we've got a double pass to give away to this wonderful, wonderful album launch. So if you're keen on getting your hands on a double pass, yes, you can see that one right there, yeah. Head on over to the social media for NT Recap for all the information on how to win that one. There's also stuff in Catherine. Are we ready to go down the Stewart Highway a bit more? How good's the dry season? We're never going to stop having events.
I know, I'm exhausted just thinking about it, but also very excited.
One of my favourite Catherine events is coming up, the Junk Festival. If you haven't been to that before, amazing. Basically, people of Catherine turn junk into the most incredible art. Another reason to move to Katherine if you're a GP. Tetanus shots are really hard in there. Top prize is $1,500, which is sick. And also there's a volunteer networking meeting happening in Katherine Town Council for any of the organisations down there that are doing great things as volunteers.
And I would think in the next month or so you'll start to see Katherine go off with more camp drafts and rodeos.
Yes, definitely.
So the whole place is just going to buzz.
Yep, K-Town for the win.
Yep.
Get up to the Northern Territory. There's so much happening. How exciting. Something else that is happening very soon is the Melbourne International Comedy Festival Roadshow, and we are lucky enough to be joined by Nikki Britton tonight, who is starring in the Roadshow. Hello, Nikki.
Hi, you guys. How's it going?
So good. It's so lovely to have you on the show. Now, if you're not familiar with Nikki Britton, well, what rock are you living under? Hello, she exploded onto the scene in 2011. On stage, on the screen, she's been on the Oxfam Gala, The Project, How to Stay Married, The Other Guy. Just this year was nominated for the most outstanding show at the Comedy Festival. We are very lucky to have you on the show, and also in the state next month actually, May 8th.
Yeah, it's only around the corner, Nikki. We're so excited. I went down to Melbourne Comedy Festival and tried to get to your show, but it's sold out, so I have to wait for you to come up to Darwin. Yeah, you had a great run at Melbourne Comedy Festival.
It was so fun. I mean, every day we were just grateful that a festival was even happening in Victoria, given everything that's happened and restrictions and all of that stuff. So it was genuinely such a lovely time, lots of sold out crowds, lots of laughter in a city that had been a bit battered and bruised and broken. And we are very excited to be bringing that vibe up to the Northern Territory next month.
Amazing.
Excellent. And yeah, so the last time I think I saw you was in Darwin, actually. You hosted the Raw Comedy Final up here in March 2020, the wonderful controversial time when everyone got sent home. How'd you go after that?
Well, obviously you're talking of the before times, before everything shut down forever. Look, that was actually the last flight that I took. It was the last gig that I did. It was such a fun time, but that was the end, the end of everything. So it actually sits in my mind with a lot of affection, really. I mean, how are you guys going? You've had relative freedom this entire time, right?
We're living the dream in Darwin at the moment. It's getting into the dry season, and when you're here, you're going to have the absolute best time. A little bit better than Howard Springs, I believe, because you spent a bit of time in there last year. What
was fun was the last flight that I took was to Darwin for the Raw Comedy Final in the Northern Territory, and then the very next flight I took was also to Darwin, but that was to spend 2 weeks in your lovely Howard Springs hotel. Not quite the 5 stars that you'd be hoping for, but hey, look, a very good facility nonetheless.
Awesome. Now, if you're not familiar with Nikki's work, you talk a lot about like dating and relationships, and you give like a lot of advice to your comedy. So we were wondering if we could pitch to you some like, Dolly Doctor style advice questions, and you could give us your best answers. Is that all right?
Absolutely. It would be my pleasure.
All right. So I've got a scenario here. It's a girl whose partner's mum has moved into their apartment for a non-determined amount of time, and she's just like watching Netflix all day and really stuffing up her Netflix algorithm. What advice can you give, Nikki?
I mean, if Netflix algorithm is the biggest concern you've got in this situation, that's pretty good. You're doing okay. But yes, look, Netflix algorithm is a real nightmare. I live alone, like a very lonely person, so I don't have this particular problem to worry about. But I would say hide the remote. That's a good start. Cut off the internet when you're not in the house. That's another good thing that you could do. Just turn that router off. And definitely get an exit date for your partner's mum, I reckon, because there's got to be an expiration date to that kind of dating.
Thank you, Nikki and Amy.
Oh, look, mine's just a proper territory one because you're going to be up here and I think it's important that you help out the Territorians. This scenario is somebody's partner doesn't like the same iced coffee brand as them. Have you got some advice on how to make sure that's a long-term sustainable relationship if they don't like the right type of iced coffee?
I don't think it can be. I think you've got to break up immediately. I don't see the relationship coming back from this, you know? It is the basis of any kind of fun, friendly joy is coffee. That's the basis. That's where you begin the day. If the relationship can't be getting through just getting the same brand, I don't see a future, I'm sorry to say.
Cut it off. All right, Ashley.
Sorry, Nikki, mine's sort of as also relationship advice. I went to a function with that was wives and girlfriends, and the two of them met. How do I deal with that?
Unfortunately, I think what's probably going to happen here is that, given I assume you've got excellent taste in women, they have met now and they are conducting a relationship behind your back together. So I'm sorry to be the one to break that news to you, but I imagine that's how that's playing out.
Thank you so much, Nikki. Make sure that you catch the Melbourne International Comedy Roadshow and Nikki Britton on the 8th of May at the Darwin Entertainment Centre. We cannot wait. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks so much, guys. See you soon.
See ya.
And that brings us to the end of the NT recap for another week. Thank you so much, Ashley and Amy. We will be back next week. I'm Sarah Reuben. See you later.